my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. So I'm filming this on New Year's Eve, but by the time you see this, it'll be my first video of 2024. So I just want to take a second to thank you all for all your support throughout the year. It's been incredible. I joined this community because I've been blogging for a while, but it feels more personal to come on here and do a video, and seeing all of you in the comments, getting to know you all, everyone getting to know my reading taste, and I feel like I'm starting to learn all of yours as well. It's just amazing. And even if you're a silent viewer, I still appreciate you so much. It's just been a journey. I love everybody in the community, everybody who just watches. It's just been amazing for me, so I can't wait to see what 2024 brings. And it seems fitting that my first video of the new year is gonna be talking about new releases, because that's what I love to do. And this is my ultimate 2024 book release video. I have done one for contemporary romance, one for fantasy romance, and one for YA. So if you're looking for those genres or age categories in particular, check out those videos. I will leave them linked down below. This is everything else. So a lot of fantasy, obviously, horror, a couple thrillers, because even though I'm not a thriller reader, there are some thriller authors that I'm dedicated to, and they are releasing books in 2024. So we need to dive in, because it's everything from February, and I think it goes all the way till November. Nothing in January, because that's getting its own separate video. That's what I'm filming next. We're starting off strong, and I have to say February 13th is going to be a huge release day. I think all of these authors, most of these authors I have read from in the past and are some of my favorites. One is an author who I've had my eye on. It's gonna be bad for my wallet, but good for my heart. So the first one is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I actually have an e-arc of this one that I am desperate to get to and hope to get to it before release date so I can talk about it with you all. This is not a sequel, but it's set in the same world as A Dowry of Blood. And it seems like this is S.T. Gibson writing dark academia, which is something I'm in for. I think her writing probably lends itself well to that subgenre, and this is set in an isolated school up in the hills of a town in Massachusetts. It says that here, secrets are currency, ambition is lifeblood, and strange ceremonies welcome students into the fold. So we're following Laura, and it's her first day at the school, and she's starting off strong, forming a academic rival right off the bat with this beautiful girl named Carmilla, and they are both drawn to this poetry professor, but it seems that this poetry professor also has a dark obsession with Carmilla, and our two main characters, Laura and Carmilla, form a blossoming friendship that becomes something more. But there's a lot of secrets that unfold in this school. And it is set in the same universe as A Dowry of Blood, so I'm expecting some vampires, and I believe that this is a Carmilla retelling, which would just make sense. And that won't be the only S.T. Gibson book on this list. We will come to her next book later on. But another author who also has 2 books on this list is obviously Kingfisher, because she keeps writing books and I keep devouring them and I just love her. So the next one we have to look forward to is What Feasts at Night, obviously by Kingfisher. This is the sequel to What Moves the Dead, which was one of the first books I read by her. It's definitely the first horror of hers that I picked up, and I think it's where a lot of people started with Kingfisher, and that felt like a complete story, so we don't really need a sequel, but I am excited that we're getting one because I like these characters. The first book is inspired by the fall of the House of Usher, so it's interesting that we're getting more. So this follows Alex, who was our main character from book 1, and after the events of book 1, they just want time to rest and relax, but that doesn't happen because they make a promise to Angus and Mrs. Potter that they will go visit their family's hunting lodge deep in the forest of Galacia. But when they arrive there, the caretaker is dead, the gardens and the lodge is in disarray, and there's an uncanny silence. And this lodge is obviously isolated. It is in a small town, and the villagers are starting rumors that the family's lodge is being haunted by a creature that has only been heard of in folklore, and this is the Easton's home, Alex's family's home, so they have to uncover what's happening. Lots of buzzwords. It's Kingfisher. I love a haunted house story. I'm curious to see these characters again. This cover is super creepy and I am into it, so I think that's one that's on a lot of our lists. I'm starting 2024, so by the time you see this video, I will be in the middle of The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden, and I'm hoping to finish that series before February 13th because she has a new book coming out. It's called The Warm Hands of Ghosts, and it's set in 2 timelines, both historical, so it's January 1918 and then November 2017, and we're following 2 siblings. In the 1918 timeline, we are following the sister, who is a nurse, and she's injured while overseas during the war, and she is medically discharged and sent home to Canada. This means that she has to leave her brother, who's fighting over there, behind, and one day she gets a letter that he has died, but she doesn't quite believe that, and she takes up a volunteer position back in Belgium to try and find out what happened to her brother. So then we're following her brother a few months previous when he is presumed dead. There's an explosion that happens. He ends up trapped with an enemy soldier, and they form an unlikely allyship, and they crawl out from under this, and he takes up a refuge with a strange man. And this man has the power to make the hellscape of the trenches completely disappear. So we're following these two siblings in different timelines, trying to figure out the truth and what is going on. So there's obviously a little bit of a fantasy element happening in this as well. I'm not always the biggest fan of war stories, but I trust Katherine Arden, and I feel like she's taking an interesting and unique approach to this one. I've been seeing some good reviews already, so this is going to be the year of Katherine Arden for me, and I can't complain. And then lastly, on February 13th, we have a new book from AJ Slatter, who wrote The Murmuring of Bones, I think it's called. That's a mermaid book that I've heard amazing things about, and it put on so many TBRs. And just never pick it up, but I really should because I think I will love it. So this new book is called The Briar Book of the Dead. And it says that it's a dark and addictive tale of witches, ancient mysteries, and sins that refuse to be buried. Witches, I'm into it. The story is set in a place called Silverton, where all of the witches reside, and normally the witches would be burned at the stakes, but they happen to be the custodians of the threshold between the civilized world and the Darklands, so they are needed. It says here that things are changing in Silverton. New forces are coming to play, and ancient mysteries and sins are refusing to stay buried. I just have this feeling that this author is going to write really atmospheric stuff that will work for me. I love this cover, obviously, and I'm here for all the witchy stuff. I read There by Tommy Orange a few years ago and really liked it. I just don't get the opportunity to talk about it on my channel very often, but Tommy Orange has a new book coming out on February 27th, and it's called Wandering Stars. This is another literary fiction / historical fiction that is set in two timelines. So one timeline is in Colorado in 1864, and the other one is in Oakland in 2018. So the story opens up with Star, who is a survivor of the Sand Creek Massacre, and he's being imprisoned and tortured by his prison guard. And this prison guard happens to go on to create the Carlisle Indian Industrial School. We then follow Star's son, Charles, who is sent to this school, and he's being tortured by the same person that his father was, and he takes solace in another person there named Opal. But then we jump to 2018, and we're following somebody named Opal Viola Victoria Bearshield, who's trying to keep her family together after her nephew was involved in a school shooting and he nearly died. And we're following that nephew as he wakes up and he is becoming dependent on medication to help with his physical pain, and he's obsessively Googling school shootings on YouTube. We also follow his brother, who was at the school that day and was traumatized and is suffering PTSD from the entire event, and then obviously Opal, trying to hold on to her family. So it'll be interesting to see how those two timelines converge and the parallels there, but I already know that I love Tommy Orange's writing. One of my goals for 2024 is to read more literary fiction and historical fiction because I do love it when I do pick it up. It's just so easy to get distracted by the new fantasies that are out there, but I do want to get back to some of my roots a little bit and pick up more books like this one. As I said, thrillers are really my thing these days, but Simone St. James is one of my exceptions, and she has a new book coming out called Murder Road. This comes out on March 5th, and the tagline says that a young couple finds themselves haunted by a string of gruesome murders committed along an old deserted road. So it's set in July 1995. So this is before cell phones. That's how we get past that whole cell phone things. They do not exist. Not everybody has them, so they can't call for help. And we're following a couple who are on their way to a small resort town for their honeymoon, and they come across this hitchhiker and they decide to help them out. It doesn't take long for them to notice that there is blood seeping from her jacket and that a truck is following them or is coming into their direction. They take the hitchhiker to the hospital where she then dies, and they become the sole suspects. There have been murders happening along this road for years and no suspects have come forward, so the police are pretty sure that our couple are the perpetrators. So April and Eddie have to prove their innocence, and they soon discover that something supernatural is at foot, which makes total sense because everything I've read from Simone St. James has that supernatural element into it. I don't know that I will be picking it up in March. For some reason that is giving me summer vibes. Well, it's set in July, so it looks like a good beach read to me. I do like a thriller on the beach once in a while. Lee Mandelo has a new book coming out on March 19th, and it's called The Woods Hold Black. I've loved something by Lee Mandelo and I have not loved something by Lee Mandelo, so I'm curious about this one. It does sound more my thing than Feed Them Silence. I just don't think I love the themes in that book as much, but I will still try anything that he writes because I love what he does in horror. It says that it's equal parts historical horror, trans romance, and a blood-soaked revenge story, all set in 1920s Appalachia. So we're following Leslie, who is part of the Frontier Nursing Service and is assigned to the small town of Spare Creek. And here he will have to mandate vaccines, help with births and also face the judgment of the villagers in the small community who view him as a failed woman. Leslie's been through a lot, so he thinks he can take anything that is thrown at him, but Spare Creek proves to be darker than he ever imagined. The hills enfolding Spare Creek have a mind of their own, and the woods surrounding them are haunted in ways Leslie could never have imagined. That sounds so good to me. It's a story of passion, prejudice, and power. It explores reproductive justice and body autonomy, the terrors of small-town religiosity, the necessity of fighting to live as who you truly are. So these are all themes that I appreciate exploring in my horror. That is what I like about horror. I think a lot of the ones that I do pick up and end up liking have something important to say, and I think Lee Mandelo does that better than the rest. I just think there's something special about the way that he does horror, so I'm hopeful that I will appreciate this one and really, really like it. Then we have The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence. This comes out on April 9th. This is the sequel to The Book That Wouldn't Burn, which was a surprise hit for me. One of my favorite books of the year. You haven't seen that video yet, but spoilers, that book will be on it because I loved it so much. Do not read the synopsis of the sequel because it'll spoil book one. What can I even say about book one? It is a book about a library that is a labyrinth. We're following two different characters, how they meet, how they grow this relationship, how they're torn apart. There's some interesting history and magic systems in this as well. I really liked Mark Lawrence's writing and the way that he created atmosphere. This is a trilogy, so I'm excited about that. And the covers of these are just beautiful. Tom Roberts has become one of my favorite illustrators, so I love the covers. And it just, everything about this works for me. I'll just read you the tagline of the sequel. It says, "We fight for the people we love. We fight for the ideas we want to be true. Adventure, discovery, and romance, while also being a love letter to books and the places where they live. The focus is on one vast and timeless library, but the love expands to encompass smaller, more personal collections and bookshops of all shades too." So it's a love letter to books, really, at the end of the day. But there's a lot more to unpack in it as well. Also on April 9th, we have The Last Spy Hunter by Salinee Goldberg, and I'm lucky enough to have an arc of this one thanks to Angry Robot Books. Just look how gorgeous this arc is. This is not the final cover. The final cover will be colored, but I think it's just as beautiful in black and white. So the tagline here tells you all you need to know, and this is what sold me on it, but it says, X is a spy hunter and a lone wolf whose road to glory is interrupted when a heavily pregnant runaway enlists his help through the ghost-infected forest. And she does not just enlist his help, she ends up saving his life, and he owes her a favor. Honestly, what else do you need to know? That just sounds incredible. I am here for this, and I think that there ends up being a romance between the two of them as well. I just love that she's a bit of a badass. And of course, I have this physical arc. I want to read it before it comes out, and I'll let you know what I think about it. Another thriller on my list is One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. She's typically a romance author. I haven't read any of her romances, but I really, really want to because I loved her last thriller, When No One Is Watching. It wasn't perfect. I understand the criticisms of it, but I thought it was really interesting what she did, and it was just another thriller that had social commentary. That is what I want in my horror thrillers, and I thought that one did that well, so I'm hoping we get more of the same in her next one. So this follows Kenitria, and she was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, and this really derails her career. She wanted to work in historical preservation. Years later, she and her alters are given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a caretaker at a historical home, so she can't turn that opportunity down. While she's there, the Home Conservation Trust shows up unexpectedly along with the man who destroyed her life years previously. But then he turns up dead, and of course, Ken is the prime suspect, and she and her alters must work together to uncover the truth. I trust Alyssa Cole to handle the representation wellness, but I will also be looking for own voice reviewers. But it sounds really interesting, and if it's done well, it could be excellent. We're getting a new P. Jelly Clark, which is amazing because I fell in love with P. Jelly Clark in 2023 and will now try and get through all his backlist and everything new that he puts out. This is called The Dead Cattails Assassins, and it comes out on April 23rd. I love the tagline. It says, "The dead cattails assassins are not cats, nor do they have tails, but they are most assuredly deadly." Our main character is Evine the Eviscerator, which is just kind of an awesome name, and she's part of a guild that is strong, and her blades are sharp and her rules are simple. If you become part of the matron of assassins, your memories of your past life are swiped and erased, and you have to follow 3 simple vows. The contracts must be just, you may only kill the contracted, and once you accept a job, you must carry it out. And obviously something happens where Evine is confronted with her past and her memories start to come back, and she may not be able to hold on to her vows. I'm really into this. I love assassins. There's cat in the title. I know they're not cats, but they seem to wear cat masks, and I'm into that, and I already know I love P. Jelly Clark, so that is one that I might consider pre-ordering as well. Another author I fell in love with this year is Django Wexler, and he's writing something that looks a little bit different, but maybe the kind of quirky that I love. It's How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. It comes out on May 21st, and it's Groundhog Day meets Guardians of the Galaxy, which is interesting. I am not somebody who loves Groundhog Day. I like the movie, but I just don't like that trope in books very often. But I'll go try it because it's Django Wexler and I like the cover and I like the idea of this. I am a Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I'm curious to see how those things blend together. I'm going to read you the synopsis of this one because I just think the humor works and I couldn't say it better myself. So it says it's about a young woman who, tired of defending humanity from the Dark Lord, decides to become the Dark Lord herself. Davi has done this all before. She's tried to be the hero and take down the all-powerful Dark Lord. 100 times she's rallied humanity and made the final charge, but the time loop always gets her in the end. Sometimes she's killed quickly, sometimes it takes a while, but she's been defeated every time. This time, she's done being the hero and done being struck into this endless time loop. If the Dark Lord always wins, then maybe that's who she needs to be. It's Davi's turn to play on the winning side. That sounds epic, you can't deny it. Another mystery author who I love is Stuart Turton, or at least I loved The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. He's got a new one out and it's called The Last Murder at the End of the World, and it comes out on May 21st. So it's set on this idyllic island where the rest of the world has been destroyed by this fog that came and killed everyone that it touched. And the only people that remain are the people on this island. So we have 112 villagers and 3 scientists. But one day, one of the beloved scientists is found murdered, and this murder somehow triggers the lowering of the security system that is keeping the fog at bay. And the islanders have 92 hours to solve the murder and to fix the security system. The only problem with this is that everyone's memories from the night before have been wiped, so they are living amongst a murderer and they don't even know it. This could be really out there and outlandish and not work, but if you read the synopsis of The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, you would say the same, but it really worked for me. So I have a good feeling about this one, and I love the cover. Obviously, I love an isolated island. Has a dystopian kind of vibe to it as well. We'll see. I think if anybody can pull it off, it's Stuart Turton. Okay, we made it to the next ST Gibson, and that is Evocation, and I have the proof, and I am in love with it. One of my most prized possessions. This is the most beautiful arc I've ever seen, and I love this author so much. This comes out on May 28th. Will I wait till May to read this? Probably not. It has been calling to me ever since I got it in the mail. So I will probably read it in February when I have time to get to it after the readathon. But it's just calling to me. I think I'm gonna love this. Obviously it's ST Gibson. Look how beautiful this is. It's telling David, who was once a psychic prodigy living under his oppressive father. But since his dad's death, he lives as an attorney in Boston during the day, and at night he is a medium. And not just any medium, but a medium for a secret society. But would you believe that a devil comes to collect on an ancestral deal, and David finds out that his days are numbered? And the only person that he could turn to for help is his ex-boyfriend, who happens to be his rival within the secret society as well. But the only way to get to his ex-boyfriend Reese is through Reese's wife, Moira, and I think they have a budding relationship between the 3 of them, and they have to try and save David. So everything about that sounds like something I'm gonna love. With ST Gibson's writing, I am here for it. It's not too long either. Definitely one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. I don't follow a ton of authors on Instagram, but the ones that I do have been promoting this book, and I think it's Olivia Atwater and maybe ST Gibson, Heather Fawcett maybe. Somebody else that I follow on Instagram and love has talked about this book, and it sounds so me. And it's Dreadful by Caitlin Rozakis, and it is out on June 4th. I'm just going to read you the synopsis of this one again because it captures the humor, but the basic tagline says that it's a high fantasy featuring killer moat squids, toxic masculinity, an evil wizard convocation, and a garlic festival. It also says it's perfect for fans of Kingfisher, which you know I am, and it definitely gives that vibe. It says it's bad enough waking up in a half-destroyed evil wizard's workshop with no eyebrows, no memories, and no idea how long you have before the dread lord whomever shows up to murder you horribly and then turn your skull into a goblet or something. It's a lot worse when you realize that dread lord whomever is you. Gav isn't really sure how he ended up in a castle full of goblins or why he has a princess locked in his cell. All he can do is play along with his own evil plan in hopes of getting his memories back before he gets himself killed. But as he realizes that nothing from the incredibly tasteless cloak adorned with flames to the aforementioned princess is quite what it seems, Gav must face up to all the dark things the Dreadlord Gavrix has done. and he'll have to answer the hardest question of all. Who does he want to be? I love that we're following the Dark Lord in this, and he has no memories, and now he's questioning what his past self has done. That sounds like a good time. It's coming highly recommended by some authors who I love, so it's definitely high on my list. We're getting a new book from Silvia Morena Garcia, another one of my favorite authors. This comes out on July 16th, and it's called The Seventh Veil of Salome. It's set in the 1950s, so we're getting more historical fiction, and it's centered around Hollywood. Following Vera, who is an unknown ingenue who ends up getting the lead role in this movie, playing the character of Salome, who was a real woman in history, and I think we get some chapters of her story as well, which I love. I love a story within a story. And it also follows a woman named Nancy, who is a bit of a bit actress, and her fame is fading, and she is highly envious of Vera, and I think becomes obsessive. So we're following Vera and Nancy and their two stories, and then we're also getting the story of Salome, who's the character Vera's playing in the movie. So there's a lot of layers to the story, but I trust that Silvia Morena Garcia is going to handle those well. I think it's going to be character driven, which is what I like from her as an author. It does seem to be something that's a little bit different for her, but I love that. I love that she has so much range. We're getting another slasher novel from Stephen Graham Jones, and this time it looks really campy and exactly my speed. It's called I Was a Teenage Slasher. The synopsis says that a small West Texas town driven by oil and cotton in a place where everyone knows everyone else's business. So it goes for Tolly Driver, a good kid with more potential than application, 17 and about to be cursed to kill for revenge. Here, Stephen Graham Jones explores the Texas he grew up in, the unfairness of being on the outside, through the slasher horror he lives, but from the perspective of the killer, Tolly, writing his own biography. Find yourself rooting for a killer in this summer teen movie of a novel gone full blood-curdling tragic. I love it when an author can make you cheer for the bad guy, and I think Stephen Graham Jones will accomplish that. And you know I love a teen slasher. So 3 more. This one comes out on August 20th. It's Kingfisher, and it's called A Sorceress Comes to Call. This is a dark retelling of the Brother Grimm's tale, The Goose Girl, and I love Kingfisher's retellings. She does fairy tale retellings, she does fantasy romance, she does fantasy, she does horror. I love it all, but there's something about her retellings that really just hit for me. This follows Cordelia, whose mother is a sorceress who doesn't let her have any friends. She keeps her in silence for hours, sometimes days at a time, and then one day somebody within the small town is killed, and her mother flee into the night on the back of her mother's horse, Falada, who is Cordelia's only friend. They end up at this remote country manor, and a wealthy older man lives there along with his sister. And this older man happens to be a squire, and Cordelia's mother thinks that it's a good idea to trick him into marrying her so that she can have a more stable life. But his sister Hester realizes that there's something not quite right about Cordelia's mother. So she wants to save her brother from this enchantment and also save Cordelia at the same time, because she can tell that she's terrified and that there's something going on here. I'm not very familiar with the original tale of Goose Girl. That is something I will probably want to look into before picking this up, but it's Kingfisher. I'm gonna read it, I'm gonna pre-order it, and I know I'm gonna love it. Another author who never misses for me is CJ Cook. She has a book coming out on October 10th. I cannot wait, and it's called The Book of Witching. We don't know a lot yet, so I will read you the brief synopsis. It says, a teenage boy burned to death, a girl in hospital claiming to be someone she isn't, another girl still missing. 4 centuries in the past, a woman stands trial for practicing witchcraft. Will Finhollow give up his secrets before someone else dies? That is it. Very vague, but I'm gonna love it. This last one I'm really excited for, even though we know nothing about it, really. We know the title. We know it's the 3rd book in a series, and it comes out on November 1st. I think it was supposed to come out in 2023, but it didn't. But I'm fine with that. I want to wait until it's perfect. And this is The Lotus Empire. It is the 3rd book in the Burning Kingdom series by Tasha Suri, who's another author I adore. That first book is The Jasmine Throne. So that is it for me. That is a wrap on all the 2024 releases, at least for now. The January one's coming next, so get excited for that. But it was so fun putting this list together. I do love talking about new releases. A lot of the books on this list in particular are from authors who I already adore. Getting all those S.T. Gibson, a new Stuart Turton, some T. Kingfisher. I'm just so thrilled to be getting books from some of my favorite authors. And check out all of my videos on my 2024 releases, because there's a lot to get excited about. Thank you again for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.